is an independent territory of Denmark. Vice President Vance is there demanding change.
You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change.
Greenland has been vigorously opposing a U.S. takeover. The U.S. will assist Myanmar after a deadly 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit this morning, killing at least 150 people. The BBC's Lyndall Markwell is in Thailand.
There is a huge mound of rubble. It's almost a hill in front of us. We've got rescue workers and rescue vehicles continually coming past us. There has been some movement in the last few hours where they have started gradually to use diggers to start working on finding people, hopefully, in this collapsed building.
Wildfires continue to rage in the Blue Ridge Mountains. This man's shed burned down at his home in Aiken County, South Carolina.
I just overcame the storm, and then get a call and got a fire. And I looked at the shed and looked at how close it was to the house. I was just grateful for the firemen and the job that they done.
His town is still reeling and recovering from Hurricane Helene. This is CBS News.
A riddle brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What do your home and auto have in common? Progressive protects them both. It was an easy riddle. Learn more at Progressive.com.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network, so yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 877-26-BIBLE. That's 877-26-BIBLE. 877-26-BIBLE.
Drive by, break a leg from one TV star to another.
Actor Kieran Culkin did a drive-by of Broadway's Music Box Theater, waving out the window at his former Succession co-star Sarah Snook, who hit the red carpet for their premiere of The Picture of Dorian Gray. Culkin was on his way to perform in Glengarry Glen Ross at the nearby Palace Theater. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News, New
While
York.
your workplace coffee machine is likely not putting out the best cup of joe, sometimes it's all you got.
Espresso?
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that from the machine that was in your office?
Mm-hmm.
According to a new study out of Sweden, it may be harmful to your health. Researchers compared office coffee machines with home brewing methods. They found the poorly filtered coffee from the office had high levels of bad cholesterol, which can cause plaque buildup in the arteries, leading to heart disease, stroke, and other health problems. Stacey Lynn, CBS News.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Weather on News Radio KMAN is brought to you by Sunset Zoo. Memberships are a fun way to experience the zoo. Pick up your membership and enjoy the Sunset Zoo all year long.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN. Your
Well, welcome to the chaos season of college basketball, where we're in the middle of the Sweet 16, and the transfer portal opened on Tuesday for the women and the men on Monday. There's over 1,000 players for both the men and women that are currently in the transfer portal. But if you ask a head coach, if you ask a player what they'd rather be doing right now, it's be dealing with both. The transfer portal, the NCAA tournament, and tomorrow, from here in Spokane, Washington, the K-State women's basketball team will square off with the 1 seed in Regional 4. That is the USC Trojans out of the Big Ten. The winner moving on to the Elite Eight to play the winner of Oklahoma and UConn. Well, welcome to the bowels of the Spokane Veterans Memorial Arena. They have stuck me in the media room, so I'm trying to keep it somewhere between D. Scott Fritchen and Brian Smoller when it comes to my voice volume here, not to disturb everybody, my studio audience, as I'll call it. But we're just hours away, a little over 24 hours away from what could be the biggest game in K-State women's basketball history, their first Sweet 16 since 2002. It's just their second since the early 80s. This is really uncharted territory, it feels like, especially with this era, no doubt about it, of college basketball. And it just so happens it is star-studded here in Spokane. From Kim Mulkey, like head coaches like Kim Mulkey of LSU, Gino Auriemma of UConn, they're here. They're going to play tomorrow against Oklahoma. Players like Lauren Betts of UCLA. And then, of course, who will not be playing is Juju Watkins, who I think is the best overall player in women's college basketball. She is going to be the standalone face here in just a moment, next year probably, if her rehab goes right. But she tore her ACL in the first quarter against Mississippi State last Monday. She will have surgery. Her season has come to an end. Well, quite interesting timing if you're K-State and you're fans of the Wildcats, because that's your next opponent. The star player is out. Now, what will USC do? Against Mississippi State was one thing. That's a team that's not anywhere close to being as good as K-State. Undersized, not a lot of toughness, horribly bad matchup for Mississippi State, even without Juju Watkins in the lineup. K-State's much different, much better defensive team, much better scoring team. So how does USC adjust? Those are probably questions we will not get a single answer to until we tip things off tomorrow. 5 o'clock here in Spokane. That'll be at 7 o'clock Central tip time. I'll speak to a few players. We'll try to get some answers from them. However, probably not going to hear much. Although maybe our guest coming up at 4:40 can help us out with that. Ryan Karchi, he's from the Los Angeles Times, going to be joining us at 4:40. We'll hear from K-State's Brian Smoller at about 4:25. And then coming up at 5:10, Mitch Palm versus USC. Mitch Palm had a winning record this year for the K-State men. What will be the projection coming up at 5:10 as we're with you for an hour and a half? We will be wrapping up at 5:30 as we'll be bringing you K-State baseball here on KBAN, game 1 of 3. Our homies from Lubbock, what a win last night to beat Arkansas, to come back from 16 down to pull off the win and move on to the Elite Eight. They get it done in overtime, 85-83, but our homies become our enemy when it comes to baseball this weekend. Game 1 of 3 with first pitch at 6:05, and pregame coverage will be at 5:30. Other finals on the men's side yesterday, Alabama 113 against a team that was one of the hottest shooting teams in the country heading into really the NCAA tournament. BYU getting to a Sweet 16 was not a shocker. Alabama hitting an NCAA record 25 triples in the game was quite a show. So they get it done. They're on to the Elite Eight. Their opponent's going to be Duke, a 100-93 victory over the Big 12's Arizona. So the Wildcats of Arizona are done. And then Florida beats Maryland 87-71. Now on the women's side, our Sweet 16 is underway. Game 1 in the books. Duke beats North Carolina 47-38, a super low-scoring game. But the Dukies get it done. Duke moving on to the Elite Eight. So they now await the winner of South Carolina and Maryland. If you remember, Maryland beating Alabama in double overtime you didn't think K-State was going to get their game topped, the overtime game against Kentucky, but it did. The 2 overtime win over Alabama. But right now, South Carolina with a 1-point lead with 1 minute to go in the first quarter, 15-14 our score. And then we still have 2 games to go here in Spokane, which I'm for sure going to stick around. I think the games that are set up for Spokane are a lot better than those in Birmingham, Alabama. But we'll have NC State against LSU tipping off at 6:30. And then at 9 on ESPN, Ole Miss and UCLA. UCLA, the number 1 overall seed, and they've been the number 1 team in the country for most of the year. Meanwhile, for K-State, how did we get here? How did K-State get to their first Sweet 16 in 23 years? The last time K-State was in a Sweet 16, Lori Kane, Kendra Wecker, Megan Mahoney were all freshmen. They made it to the WNBA. Nicole Oldie was just a sophomore who averaged 18 points a game and was an All-American. Then, of course, to round out the starting lineup was the only senior in the lineup, actually the only senior that really played a whole lot of minutes. She'll be on the radio call. Kristen Waller, who back then was known as Kristen Rethman, at 7 points a game and still stands as the best three-point shooter when it comes to percentage in K-State women's basketball history. Well, the Cats had to get 2 wins in Lexington, Kentucky to make it to Spokane, Washington. Going back to the first matchup, the 5-12, K-State against Fairfield. Now, it's not as common, but 12s over 5s does happen relatively often in the women's tournament. But K-State gets it done against the Stags, 85-41. That was just vintage K-State, where the Cats dominated the first and third quarters. K-State shot the ball very well, although it was a bit of a rough day for a player like Tamira Poindexter, who was just 1 of 8 for the game. But Cats had 4 players in double figures. Taryn Sides goes off in the second half and hits 4 threes, led by K-State's Serena Sundell with 18 points, 17 from Aoka Lee, and 10 points from Jalen Klint. Now for the Kentucky game. No doubt about it, it was the best game of the year up to that point, at least for the NCAA tournament, where K-State had to squeak out an overtime victory, 80-79, holding their breath as Kentucky got 4 shots in the final moments to win the game or at least take the lead, and they missed all 4. 3 were taken by one of the best point guards in the country in Georgia Amor, including a floater from the right baseline from about 5 or 6 feet, hit both sides of the rim and did not fall, and K-State holds on for the 1-point victory and the true road win to get to the Sweet 16. Now back to Tamira Poindexter. She went from somebody that was having a super frustrating tournament to having the biggest game, or one of the biggest games in the tournament. 8 3-pointers she made after she started 0 of 5 from 3. She went 8 of 15. She finished with 24 points. All of her points coming from behind the arc. 16 points from Aoka Lee. And how about Serena Sundell? Want to talk about another NCAA record for the Cats? 14 assists for the point guard. She finished with a second best on the team with 19 points. Again, 16 from Lee. Kennedy Taylor off the bench was really big about K-State making a comeback in the second quarter as she finished with 11 points. So K-State for the tournament, I mean, if you look at the numbers, is doing an incredible job. Sundell is proving right here and now why her name and her jersey should be in the rafters of Bramlage Coliseum next to Aoka Lee. 18.5 points per game and 11.5 6. She had, again, 14 against the Wildcats, grabbing some rebounds, steals on the defensive end. And as a point guard, shooting 64% in the tournament so far is huge, and she's made 4 threes. Aoka Lee is back. We know what kind of team K-State is without Aoka Lee. This is something USC is now learning to deal with. Your star player is out. How do you adjust? K-State's like, been here, done that, right? That happened last year, missed 7 games. This year, missed 13 games. And both years, K-State's been kind of close to 500. A little bit better last year, but K-State didn't make a deep run, even though they hosted. This year, more games without Lee, closer to 500, yet K-State is in the Sweet 16. A major reason why Aoka Lee is finally close to healthy. Will not say 100%. She's had 2, feet injuries. but averaging 16.5 a game in the tournament, 9.5 rebounds. She's shooting 54%. K-State, I mean, you cannot deny how good this team is when she's in the lineup. K-State this year 20-1 when Aoka Lee is in the lineup. If she doesn't get hurt, there's no doubt about it. K-State is much more of a bigger threat to win the Big 12, much more likely to be hosting in the NCAA tournament, and to be at least a top 10 team throughout the season. Tamira Poindexter, what a comeback in the second game. Only 7 points against Fairfield, 24 points against Kentucky. Also, you got to account for what she did not shooting the basketball. K-State in the first half, yes, they were down, but they were making plays on defense. It helped that Poindexter had 6 blocks. And Kentucky, and this is something that Kentucky has in common with USC. They are the 2 best teams in the country at blocking shots. Kentucky actually got to their season average, the same average as USC, 7 blocks. K-State had 13 in the game. They upped. They did what Kentucky does so well. They did it better than the Kentucky Wildcats on Kentucky's home floor. Jalen Glenn is averaging 10 points a game, 6 rebounds. She's hit 5 of her 13 threes. I would not be shocked if she plays 40 minutes against USC. Team offense right now, K-State in the tournament shooting 46%. They are 38% from 3. Offensive rebounds at a good clip, 14 a game. And also turnovers, a little high, but 14 a game. And they also have 17 blocks. Team defense, look, the shooting numbers, obviously with playing Fairfield and then playing Kentucky, will make things go up and down a little bit, of course. But Kentucky shot 39%. The average is 35.5 for the team defense right now. K-State's team defense, guarding the 3, pretty good so far. Just 21% teams are shooting against the Cats. 8 free throws attempted in each game. You'll live with that. Now Kentucky, and here's what I do worry about a little bit. Kentucky had 19 offensive rebounds in the game. You don't like that. And this is where I feel like USC, this is kind of a sneak peek at Mitch Palm a little bit, but USC is a pretty solid rebounding team. Pretty solid offensive rebounding team. They got a pair of players that will get after it on the boards. They're going to play ping pong off the backboard to try to compete with everything that K-State's going to be going after on the boards. And also forcing turnovers. K-State has forced 28 in the tournament so far. For USC, they beat UNC Greensboro 71-25. They've dominated, and even mostly without Juju Watkins, knocking off Mississippi State 96-59. USC has won the Big Ten regular season title. Their only losses this year, just 3 losses, losing to Notre Dame, losing at Iowa, and then in the Big Ten championship game in the tournament, they fall to the rival UCLA, who they did beat earlier in the year. Missing Juju Watkins, obviously the way the committee set things up, they wanted the trilogy. They wanted the final game between Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers. UConn won the first meeting in the NCAA tournament last year in the Elite Eight. They met up this year, and it was USC able to squeak it out by 1 possession. So they're hoping for a rubber match, but things obviously have now changed with no Juju Watkins in the lineup. But USC still has 30 wins. They're an incredibly talented team. This past recruiting class, there's pretty decent amount of freshmen on the team, the 3rd best recruiting class in the country. These freshmen are going to have to step up for USC tomorrow, but the most wins the program has had since 1986. Before we take a break, let's hear from a K-State player. And we talked about her a little bit earlier, but Jalen Glenn is another one of these seniors. She's one of 6 on the team that right now on her last run as a Wildcat, and I was able to catch up with Jalen earlier today. I want to go back to the press conference a couple of days ago that you had, but also Coach Mitty finished it off just alone with the media. Your questions were asked about you, and he mentioned, it doesn't matter what kind of lineup he wants to run with. You're in that lineup. Just what does that mean to you that, there's just that much trust in you in your final season?
I ended up seeing or reading about that article this morning, actually. It means everything. Just being able to help my teammates, help out my coaches. It means even more knowing that my coaches have that much faith, that much trust in me, that I'm able to help make a difference for this team, help this team win. Yeah, so it really does mean everything, especially in the last year.
Take me back to that shot that you made towards the end of regulation, the 3-pointer. Because it looked like there was zero thought. You knew you had to shoot it, you let it go, and you made it. Just take me back and run me through that play.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't really hitting shots that game, but I owe it all to my teammates for instilling confidence in me, telling me to continue shooting the ball, taking shots when they're open. So yeah, for me, that was really just like any other shot. There wasn't really any thought behind it. It was open, so I just let it go. And yeah, I think I owe it all to my teammates for telling me to continue shooting the ball, even though I was having a rough game. So yeah, I really would say that's on them. And yeah.
So what's a scout like when you're all together watching an NCAA tournament game? You know the winner's going to play you. Like, are you guys talking shop the entire game, or are you just kind of sitting back and watching?
A little bit of both, I would say, just kind of seeing how the team that they're currently playing is playing them, and then what differences we can make and what adjustments we could also make that maybe would be a little bit more helpful or kind of fit in with our style of play more than the opposing team. But yeah, really just a little bit of that, but yeah, and then mostly just watching.
So with USC, do you feel like, even though Juju Watkins obviously not going to play, there's probably very little film out there on USC without her in it when it comes to meaningful minutes. She plays all the time. So do you guys feel like you have a grasp on USC minus Juju Watkins?
I would say we're still taking steps, continuing to do things in practice, kind of figuring out what we want to do, things like that. There's really no set kind of way you can kind of determine how you want to play a game. You're just going to have to kind of get a feel for the game when it starts and then go out there and just do what we do. I think we're all smart players. We've been playing the game long enough, so I think adjustments will come when we get more into the game. There's really not one set thing that we're saying that we want to go out and do specifically, if that makes sense.
Last thing, what do you feel like how do you feel about the climate here in the Pacific Northwest? Just cold and rainy all the time. Do you like it?
Not really, especially coming from Manhattan. It was nice there, a little bit of sunny, nice wind, so it wasn't overly hot. So then just coming here, and it's like dark too, but that's okay. I guess kind of still adjusting to that. Not really, having to check the weather in the morning. But yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate coming from warmer weather to a little bit colder weather, but that's okay.
Jalen, really appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Once again, that's K-State's Jalen Glenn speaking with her just a few moments ago. Going back to the Juju Watkins question, it's just kind of probably just, again, not going to get a whole lot of answers about what's going to be the identity of USC without the best player in the country on the floor. It is quite a mystery. The questions are, she shoots it 18 times a game. Who's going to take those shots now? Really, her stats across the board is about 30% of what USC has done this year. She's one of the top scorers in the country. Who's going to make up for 24 points? Still a team with Juju that averages 81 a game. That's a phenomenal number, one of the best in the country. But you take away 24, you're now missing a lot of points. You're under 60 points a game. Players are obviously going to have to step up. It's not going to be holding, most likely, USC under 60. But it's just a lot of these answers, probably not going to be able to answer them until that ball tips off. And USC's going to have to try some things. Exactly what K-State had to do, kind of reinvent some things. Juju's a different player than Aoka Lee, a guard, a very good one. Probably not as big of an adjustment as it was for K-State, missing a traditional center and then not having another traditional center on the roster. So, with that being said, we'll go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, maybe we can get some answers from a special guest we got coming on at about 4:40, 4:45. USC beat writer Ryan Karchi is going to be joining us from the LA Times. He'll sit down with us. We'll ask him those same questions. Maybe he has a little bit of an insight of what USC might look like without Juju Watkins up on the floor. But when we come back, K-State's play-by-play on the radio call for this matchup between K-State and USC is Brian Smoller. We'll talk with Brian when we come back on the game from Spokane, Washington. We're back on the game from Spokane, Washington. Spokane Veterans Memorial Arena, the home of the Spokane Chiefs. I doubt we're going to hear at the end of the national anthem, Chiefs, because I don't know how many locals will be here. Got a lot of great teams, a lot of fan bases that travel well, expecting over 12,000 each day of the NCAA tournament to be here. And it's, of course, tomorrow K-State will play the last Sweet 16 game. That'll be against the USC Trojans. It'll be the second meeting all time. You know, I mentioned earlier that 2002, the last time K-State was in a Sweet 16. Well, it was 2003 the last time these two teams met. That was in Manhattan, 73-61. K-State won the game, so this will be just the second meeting all time. First Sweet 16 for the Cats since 2002, their fourth all-time. Looking for a second ever Elite Eight and the first since, I believe this is the first women's NCAA tournament, 1982 for USC. Second straight Sweet 16. This is their 12th all-time and looking for a second straight Elite Eight. Well, just moments ago, I was able to catch up with the man who's going to be on the call, and I'm sure it's going to be packing a punch like it always does with Brian Smoller. He'll be on the call with Kristen Waller. Tomorrow's pregame will be at 6:30. The game tips off at 7 o'clock from Spokane, Washington. Here's my conversation from earlier today with a former host of this show, Brian Smoller.
Let's go back to Lexington for just a moment. I put out there on the K-Man website your final call of the win to beat Kentucky, which I understand the emotions. Were you on fumes at that point? Because that was one of the best games I think I've ever seen K-State women's basketball play when it comes to the competitiveness, the lead changes, and, of course, the stakes.
Yeah, I think the stakes part was what got me. I was going into the game, you're thinking about the totality of everything, like Ayoka Lee put all that work in rehab to get to that point, and her career and the legacy of those kids, and then Jeff Mitty and all the times that K-State's been right there to take a big game and hasn't been able to pull it off, whatever your definition of a big game is. And yeah, so that kind of was all hitting at the end of the game. You're more excited, and there were moments where K-State, I think, was down 5 with like a minute to go in regulation, and I remember Kristen and I looking at each other, kind of like, boy, is this going to be it? Another time where they just come up short, and Tamira goes off, Serena hits the big shot late, Jalen Glenn in overtime hitting a 3, and so at the end it was more just like relief more than anything else. It was I had been screaming for 2 hours, but so it was shot. But then beyond that, it was just unbelievable amount of relief when it actually fell off, and the finality of they actually did it. They actually pulled it off.
How big of a tournament is Serena Sundell having right now? Her numbers look really good. She looks like just that leader that she's been this season that's really shown in the NCAA tournament.
Well, she spoke to it today, I think. I think for the first time in her career, she's really playing free, and Jeff was asked, I think, about just her abilities as a passer and how it's grown over her career. And I think most point guards would tell you that at first it's a sip off a fire hydrant when you first get to college, because you're trying to memorize the plays and you're just trying to make sure people go in the right spot. But then it gets to a point where now you have to be able to see the defense and see the floor and pass the other spots that aren't necessarily just your role and just the person you're passing to. And seeing that other part of the game, you can tell that she has just grown in her ability to stay calm and kind of roll with it no matter the moment. And I remember in Kentucky that she went to each player late in the game and kind of gave them a message on the court. And I think she did a great job of just calming people down, making them realize that they're good and she believes in them. She's still going to pass to them and hit them for open shots. And I think she's playing the best basketball of her career. And one of the other thoughts I had about that Kentucky game was this was her legacy game, in the sense that she wins that game, I think you have a legitimate conversation for her going up in the rafters at K-State. If they had not won that game, I think it's a harder sell. But I think without question, she's one of the greatest point guards to ever play for Kansas State.
Going back to your final call as well, after Kristen said, what a game, you mentioned Lee, how emotional she was. I guess from seeing that maybe be the best example of just the story of what that meant for K-State to get to a Sweet 16, and especially with that group of, if she's busting out in emotions like that, that's a lot of hard work showing off there in one moment.
No doubt. I mean, that's 7 years. 7 years of injuries and 2 years taken away of injuries that she's had to overcome to get to that moment. And it was every reason that she came back, it was to get to something like this, to get to the second weekend and beyond, and to finally get there after all of the rehab, all of that time. You can understand the emotion that would overwhelm somebody for all that years of work of her life. I mean, just basically getting to this one moment. And now that they're here, I think they're feeling pretty confident. I think they still feel like an underdog and are ready to play.
How does it feel for you to be about to be calling a Sweet 16 game? You've been doing this a long time.
It's, I don't know. You kind of don't think of it in those terms. At least I don't. I just think of it another game. I mean, it was like doing the game itself in this round of the 32 or the second round to get to the Sweet 16. There were people afterwards who were like, boy, you must have really enjoyed that. I was like, absolutely not. It was so nerve-wracking. I just wanted to get it over with. I'll enjoy this one a little bit more, just the process, because I think K-State's already above. I think they've done what they needed to do for this season, but now they're greedy and they want to go out and prove the world wrong. I think they still think that people don't think they're very good, so they're ready to go out and play a USC team. So it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to watching them.
So I've been asking all the players, like, do you feel like you have a grasp at all of what exactly USC is going to be without Juju Watkins? We got the example against Mississippi State. K-State's a lot better than Mississippi State. So is it just going to have to be, well, we'll get out there and see what happens?
I think there's an element of that because K-State's a different team than Mississippi State, just dynamically and how they're set up and how they're constructed. Juju Watkins did so much for USC defensively that's really the end of the floor that's going to be key here and what USC will do. That's the part that I'm most curious about. I think offensively, I think it's not a real big secret that they're going to try and go to Kiki on the offensive end. From Juju to Kiki, I mean, that's a tremendous player and, I mean, great at Stanford and just hasn't had the opportunity to shine yet because of all the shots that Juju would take in a game. But Talia Van Olhoffen at point guard from Oregon State's got a lot of experience in postseason. Obviously, Erie Offen, and then they've surrounded with a number 3 recruiting class in the country, with great freshmen. So I'm curious to how defensively they will do in front. Did he go one-on-one with Ryan Marshall down low against Ayoka Lee? I don't know. I don't know if they'll try and box with Erie Offen, and then they'll try and leave some. Kentucky gambled and left Poindexter open, and it burned them. Did they try and do the same thing with K-State and leave a Zy Walker or a Terrence Hides open? Curious to see how it all goes, and I think there will be a little bit of first quarter feeling it out. That may not spell the story of the game. However, the first quarter and the first game that starts.
Is there one area about USC that you feel like maybe will not drop off at all, even though Juju's out? Because I feel like the way they play defense could be a little bit of a problem.
They love to play full court. They love to get up into you. Juju is so athletic and so fast. I mean, 75 steals and 60 blocks. That's crazy numbers. And for anybody. And for her to have that, I think that'll be missed more than anything else. I don't know if they have that quickness and athleticism all in one package. They have it split up into different players. So defensively, they'll probably still do what they do. I don't suspect that they will change that dramatically. I think if there's one thing that stays the same, I think they can score. I think they can absolutely score, and in fact might be more dangerous without Juju Watkins, because with Juju, you at least know 20 times a game I know where that shot's coming from or who it's coming from. The ball's in her hand every possession. Now there's a little bit of an unknown. Okay, who's going to take those 20 shots? Is it all Erie Offen? Is it going to be someone like Holloway who had a great 3-point game against Mississippi State, or is it Heckel off the bench? There's just so many other options for USC to go to. That's the part that it feels like scoring could be the same as we saw against Mississippi State, just from different people.
I don't know what your plan is for today, because I know Gonzaga is playing baseball at home this weekend, but I feel like we're kind of spoiled with our regional because there's a lot of superstars. I think there's more superstars here than there are in Birmingham. Betts at UCLA, Beckers. It's going to be a really fun weekend.
No doubt. I think the media person told us that there was more media requests for this regional than they've ever had in the history of the tournament. So I think that star power is part of that with UCLA, USC, even injured Juju, and then Paige Beckers and Kim Mulkey and LSU here as well. I mean, there are some huge names and greats in the game that are all here. And then K-State. I mean, Aoka Lee and Serena Sundell both were listed as top 25 players in the tournament. I think they're higher than that, but they were both 24 and 25. But K-State's one of the few teams that's got 2 on that list.
So when is your nerves going to set in for tomorrow's game? Mine are already kind of starting to get there a little bit.
It'll be fourth quarter for sure. It just, after seeing what happened against Kentucky, I don't think this team is ever out of a game. K-State, just their ability to shoot the 3. Nerves will be in the fourth quarter if it's close, and that's what you want. You want to go to the fourth quarter, close game, see what you can take from that. K-State's already won the most difficult game of anybody in the tournament. They won on someone else's home floor, a very good team, and beat somebody. That has not happened. No one else did that in the league in this tournament. So they're not fearful of anything. They're battle tested. They're ready to go, and now you're just ready to play the game. I can't believe we have to wait another 24 hours.
Feels like it's going to be a long way. Brian, I really appreciate it. We'll have a good call tomorrow.
All right, Mitch. Good to see you.
Once again, that is K-State's Brian Smoller joining us here at Spokane Arena as we are, we're a little over, of course, 24 hours away from tip-off. Sweet 16, K-State, USC, 7 o'clock Central. Pregame coverage will be at 6:30. Well, we need more of a USC perspective, somebody who's seen them in person everywhere they go. Scheduled to be joined by USC beat writer Ryan Karchi from the LA Times after a timeout, the game from Spokane, Washington. The game continues from Spokane, Washington. Mitch Fortner from Spokane Arena. Tomorrow's tip-off 7 p.m. Pregame coverage at 6:30. The 5 out of Regional 4, K-State against the 1 USC without Juju Watkins. Orion from the LA Times unable to join us quite yet, so we'll go ahead and get to our next player interview. She wanted to add Juju Watkins to her resume, but she's had to guard Georgia Amore, of course, from Kentucky on a couple of occasions, has guarded and done an extremely good job against Caitlin Clark. But this time around, no Juju Watkins. How much does that change for Zy Walker? We check in with Zy earlier today during the player press conference.
All right, Zy Walker, how does it feel to be in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament?
It feels amazing. I knew from the start of the season we had the capability to do this, and we had the right team and the talent to go as far as we wanted to. And we know this isn't it, though. We want to still make it farther, and we still have goals and aspirations of achieving more and more.
You know, honestly, the first thing that stands out, obviously, about this game is your defense. You have already quite the resume of guarding some high-caliber players. Were you looking forward to guarding Juju prior to her going down?
I was looking forward to guarding Juju. I always want to compete. I'm a competitor. I like to compete, so I want the best players out there in their whole roster. Prayers up for her because I know that sucks. ACL tear. I've been through it myself. It sucks. So, I was really looking forward to guarding her for sure.
So what is she going through right now? She's only, what was that, 4 or 5 days ago, and she hurts her knee. So, what is she going to have to go through now?
Well, I'm sure she's devastated. She's probably going to watch her team finish out the year and just hopefully I hope she has a positive mindset and just tries to get better from there and just focus on surgery and then her recovery process from there.
How long was your recovery?
I kind of had a lot of ups and downs with my surgery. So once I got back to the court, I returned to the court, tried to about 10 months after my surgery. But then I unfortunately tore my meniscus, so then I had to have another surgery right after that. And then as I was recovering from my meniscus, I was almost back on the court again, and I retore that same meniscus, so then I had another surgery. So I kind of had 3 surgeries in a row. And then after that last surgery, I was able to play. My journey was a little different with that.
What was it like guarding Georgia Amore, who, the scout on her was pretty well known, and she had, percentage-wise, not her best day?
I was really looking forward to that matchup. I knew Amore was one of the best guards in the country. She's going to go to the WNBA draft, so I just made the most of the opportunity, and I just out there and competed to the best of my ability.
One thing I've noticed is everybody's kind of going underneath the ball screen. I guess what's the mindset behind going underneath instead of trying to battle over the top, or what goes behind that?
Well, a player like that, she's so good. You're always going to give up something, even though she can shoot the three. We're going under the screen just because we know we go over that. She's making reads off the ball screen, and we really wanted to take that away. And we knew that, when she's passing the ball, she's facilitating. That makes that Kentucky team really good.
K-State wins in a Sweet 16 against USC by doing what right?
I think we really have to key in on our matchup with Kiki. We gotta try to find a way to contain her. We're not gonna shut her down all the way, but we gotta try to find best ways to slow her down, keep her off the offensive glass, and I think if we do that, rebound and play our game, we'll be fine.
Obviously, you don't have to go into the entire game plan with me, but does your role change a lot because Juju isn't playing?
I don't think my role changes at all. I'm still gonna go in and do what I can, offensively and defensively. So, I think I'm still same mindset going into this game.
All right, Zy, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Once again, K-State's Zy Walker getting ready for USC tomorrow at 7, pregame coverage at 6:30. We'll finish hour 1 of the game when we come back. Reminder, K-State baseball coming up at 5:30. Game 1 of 3 against the Texas Tech Red Raiders at Toyton Family Stadium. Wrapping up hour 1 of the game next from Spokane, Washington. The game continues from Spokane, Washington. Over 24 hours away. Still 2 games to go today here in the Sweet 16 from Spokane. Mitch Fortner back with you on the game, and we're joined by Ryan Karchi from the LA Times, who covers the USC Trojans. Ryan, I really appreciate your time. You know, it's funny how I heard about you. We covered the Dan Patrick Show on our radio station. I remember hearing you back in the day covering the Clay Helton change, and now Lincoln Riley, now the head coach. How are USC fans feeling about Lincoln Riley right now?
Wow, that feels like decades ago at this point. They have mixed feelings, I would say. I think they're pretty unhappy with the fact that, this team hasn't already become a Big Ten championship contender. They certainly haven't looked that way the past couple years. And last year they have, finished with the worst record of Lincoln Riley's head coaching career with just 7 wins. So, there are changes that they've made to try to put Lincoln in a better situation, but we've kind of reached the point where I think people are ready to see the results, or else, they're going to continue being more and more unhappy.
Yeah, Oklahoma was in the Big 12 at the time when that change is made, or him going to USC, so that was some pretty major news. Meanwhile, for the women's basketball team, now a powerhouse. Lindsey Gottlieb has herself a really good team, but, of course, Juju Watkins out for the rest of the year with the torn ACL. Just, I guess, take me back to that game in LA in that moment. Just what was it like in the arena? We heard the booing on TV, but I'm sure it was a little bit more of a tense arena. Even though the game was going well, their star player was now out.
Well, it was a really unsettling scene just at first, because you can even just kind of hear her crying out in agony, on the court, and you knew pretty quickly that there was something seriously wrong, and I think people in the arena sensed that too. So you get sort of this weird pall kind of cast over things, and I know a lot of their anger was maybe placed on Mississippi State, namely the guard Chandler Prater, who was guarding Juju at the time. But Lindsey Gottlieb just said it a little bit ago, just very clearly wasn't a dirty play. No one blames Chandler Prater for that, or Mississippi State. But the fans certainly let Mississippi State hear it for what they thought was some dirty treatment, and that continued on. Even the cheerleaders got booed at halftime. So it was a very tense and yet still kind of electric atmosphere, in that USC kind of rises above this loss in the second half and ends up just absolutely blowing Mississippi State out of the water.
So the big question, though, is now about USC is how now does USC go about not having Juju Watkins against a better team than Mississippi State? A bigger team, it's a much different team, right? So, I mean, that's, I guess, the question. Do you have a grasp yet on what you think we'll see tomorrow, or is it just we're just going to have to find out when that ball tips and on what the Trojans are going to do and how they attack?
They've insisted that it won't change things that much, but I think inevitably it has to. I mean, this is someone who had one of the highest usage rates, in all of college basketball, men or women. Second highest leading scorer in the nation. So to replace her contributions is going to be tough, and it's going to require some changes. But I do think they can go to lean on Kiki Iriafen. She had 36 points in the last game. That was a high for her at USC. You have 3 freshmen who have really been great this year. They're part of the #1 recruiting class in the nation, have really grown up over the course of this year. All of them are in a good spot to step in. So I think we're going to see a pretty balanced effort, more so than just Kiki Iriafen scoring 30-plus points every game. But that said, it's going to be very difficult to overcome losing a player like Juju, who is not only just, a scorer, but kind of the heart of the defense as well. So on both ends, you really start to wonder how they're going to adjust to this, especially when, Kansas State's no slouch. I mean, that's especially a team that, has a 6'7" center that, could certainly give them trouble.
So you mentioned on both ends. So is there not one little piece of the game or area that you feel like shouldn't be much of a letdown, even though Juju is out for this game?
Well, I think this team can still hit 3-pointers. I know Juju is obviously a big part of that, but they're freshman guards, and also even Kiki Iriafen can step out and hit a 3 if she needs to. So I don't know that part of the game is going to change as much. But in terms of driving into the lane, something that Juju is just unreal at, especially navigating around, very tall bigs who happen to be in the paint. That is going to be a lot harder for this team. So I think just the way they get the ball into the paint will probably be different. I can also imagine that that's going to be an area in which Kansas State tries to force them to beat them on the three-point line, and that, it's March. That can go one way or the other.
So with just a few seconds left, my girlfriend would like to know, since you cover USC, if you've met a lot of celebrities during your coverage.
Well, there's been a ton of celebrities at the women's basketball games these days. Kevin Hart was certainly been to a bunch. Jaden Daniels, there's a bunch of rumors about him.
Sure.
And USC. But no, none that I've met personally. I live a bit further away, too, from the heart of the celebrity part of L.A., so it's been a fewer than I once would have seen.
How long does the commute take from your place to a home game?
Oh, boy. If it's a 5-6 o'clock tip, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, even at the worst. It's not for the faint of heart, I'll say that.
Well, Ryan, I really appreciate it. We got ourselves quite an interesting ball game tomorrow, so I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Ryan Karchi from the LA Times joining us here on the game. We're going to wrap up hour number 1. We got a short hour number 2. Coming up next, as it's Mitch Palm against USC, the official prediction is Mitch Palm was better than Ken Palm for the men's side, but it's the first women's prediction of the year, first Sweet 16 for the Cats since 2002. And, of course, coming up at 5:30, K-State baseball against Texas Tech, game 1 of 3 at Toyton Family Stadium. Short hour 2 next on KMAN. Kill this signal. I just got the MP3 from the presser. Hey, can you kill the signal, please?
week you talked about not looking in the rearview mirror, adding quote to the next.
Hi, Jeff. Kendra Andrews, ESPN. All year, really, sorry. USC plays so much through Juju, who obviously is.
There's not many clips out there.
USC.
Basketball wide.
Ryan Cartier. Ryan Cartier, LA Times. Aoka, what is the difficulty when going up against a big like Kiki area?
I think Kiki's a great player. She will definitely be like a focus for our team. Has been in our scout.
Love Manhattan and love K-State, so it's been a really fun.
Eve Mossy Hoops HQ Aoka, just to kind of go off that, like.
Okay, you can send me signal.
After a year-long search, the Sundance Film Festival is moving to Boulder, Colorado. For decades, it's been held in the Utah ski town of Park City. Sundance had narrowed down the options to Salt Lake City, Cincinnati, and Boulder. Organizers said after
Hey guys, just be ready to play the Mitch Palm intro. Obviously, I'll cue it up and I'll lead into it. Just know where it's at and make sure you're ready to play it after a while. Oh, okay. I thought Jimmy was with you. I got you. Right on. Yeah, ZY. Appreciate it. Do you know how to upload the podcast? Okay. Right on. Hour 2 of the game after work. Mitch Fortner from Spokane, Washington. Tomorrow, K-State USC, Sweet 16. 7 o'clock Central for the tip. Pre-game coverage is at 6:30. The game also televised on ESPN. Mitch Palm coming up here in just a few moments. We're also going to hear a few questions from Jeff Mitty's press conference, also the presser with Aoka Lee and Serena Sundell. We're just going to hear a couple of questions from each press conference. That was earlier. I was not in there for that. I was at the locker room to talk with the other players, so that'll be the first time I hear it as well. K-State baseball coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Cats and Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Game 1 of 3. First pitch, 6:05. Pre-game coverage at 5:30 here on KMAN with Wyatt Thompson on the call. Let's get a quick update on what's going on today in the Sweet 16 on the women's side of the bracket. A final earlier today. Kicking off the Sweet 16. How about Duke, North Carolina playing each other for the first time ever in the NCAA tournament? Duke wins a low-scoring game, 47-38. They're off to the Elite Eight. And then they'll play the winner of South Carolina and Maryland. And how about this? I mean, it's on the TV right now here in the media area. Right now it is Maryland up 6, now up 4 on South Carolina, 43-39. Maryland coming off that thriller on Monday, beating Alabama in double overtime. South Carolina right now down a couple of scores in Birmingham, Alabama. Just moments away, about an hour and 20 minutes away, as I see more media starting to file in. LSU, NC State going to be tipping off at 6:30. That'll be on ESPN. K-State always loves a good run-in with Kim Mulkey. I'll never forget all the times that Kim Mulkey was coaching Baylor and coming into Bramlage Coliseum and chewing out referees. And I'll never forget back in, I think it was about 2016 when I was the public address announcer, and she told a referee to shove the fouls up his butt and got a technical foul, and then she denied it. But I was right there, and that did 100% happen. She'll be taking on her LSU Tigers, taking on NC State. Ole Miss, UCLA at 9 Central, also on ESPN to wrap up the day. Then take a look at Saturday's slate. Check that, Notre Dame, TCU. The only other team in the Big 12 still alive is the Horned Frogs, the Big 12 champions, taking on Notre Dame. That'll be a noon tip-off on ABC. Tennessee and Texas. That'll be at 2:30 on ABC. And then here in Spokane, both those games that I said previously in Birmingham. And then the other half of K-State's bracket is Oklahoma and UConn. Paige Beckers, of course, playing for the Huskies. That's another legendary head coach, Gino Auriemma, who K-State also saw back in 2016. Taking on former Big 12 foe, the Oklahoma Sooners. And then, like I mentioned, K-State, a 1.5-point dog, taking on USC at 7 o'clock on ESPN. All right, let's get to the Jeff Mittie and Aoka Lee Serena Sundell press conference from earlier today. Again, just a couple of questions from both. Let's first hear from the Jeff Mittie press conference.
USC plays so much through Juju, who obviously is not going to be able to play in these games. How does that impact the way you guys can prep, the film that you can watch of this team when their main player isn't going to be out there?
There's not many clips out there with her not on the floor. That's been a real challenge. Yeah, there's maybe 100 total. And they played so well without her. First off, you know, I would just say you feel bad for Juju. And I said this in our presser earlier in the week, just the sense that anytime there are injuries, and in our game in women's basketball, there's more than we like, right? And we've dealt with it with Aoka Lee, and it's tough. It's tough. And, you know, in terms of our preparation, it's a challenge for us because there's going to be an element of the unknown, right? And so we'll have to, there may be in-game stuff that they're running more stuff that they're running, who they put in the activity. Obviously, Kiki had a terrific game, and she can do a lot for them. So we feel like there may be some things that they do there. There may be some things that they do with their shooters differently. So we'll have to be prepared for all of that.
Eden Lassie, Hoops HQ. I talked to Serena earlier in the year, and she said, like, it was crazy to her to be here because when she committed, she was worried that she wouldn't be able to play at this level. Like, she thought maybe she should go to a mid-major. For you, just what has it been like watching her develop and have her at this moment?
You know, that's been one of the things that we've been proud of, just our program in general, is the development of players like Serena that maybe aren't the five-star coming out, but my staff sees something in them. We see something that we can develop them in the weight room, develop them in their skill set. And Serena is exactly the type of player that we've had a lot of success with. Players that come every day, want to work, want to learn, want to get better. And with a lot of pride, I watch her and her teammates be in this moment and know all the hard work that they put in to get here. So her in particular, you know, she's had a great senior year. Her game has changed from the freshman year dramatically to being able to run the offense at that point. And now we can run the offense through her at times, and we can run the offense to her. And, you saw that at the very end of Kentucky. We ran to her at the very end to send that thing to overtime. And that's a play that as a freshman, early sophomore year, probably doesn't make.
Once again, Jeff Mitty from just a few moments ago here, and a couple of questions from his press conference. That was actually quite a long press conference. He went about 15 minutes. That was about 20% of his press conference. I've just been hearing about Serena Sundell and her lack of confidence in her game coming into the college level. I remember when she came to Manhattan and she moved here as a true freshman 4 years ago, and the word about her is that she was just a gym rat, first in the gym, ready for practice, the last to leave, and she's just continued to work on her game, and was also just super impressive. And since her freshman year, she's been a starter. She's been the real deal. She's now the all-time leader in assists in K-State women's basketball history, and I've been advocating for this really all season long, that her jersey needs to be in the rafters of Bramlage Coliseum. Speaking of Sundell, also Aoka Lee, let's hear a little bit of their press conference from moments ago.
Ryan Carchi, LA Times. Aoka, what is the difficulty when going up against a big like Kiki Arifan, and just in terms of preparing for a team like USC when they don't have Juju Watkins, what sort of difficulty is there in just trying to understand even what they bring to the table, what they're going to do?
I think Kiki's a great player. She will definitely be like a focus for our team, has been in our scout. I think just like putting her in positions that she, isn't comfortable with, not giving her like the looks that she wants. I think film is awesome just because, we can see what they're capable of, So I think just trusting the film, trusting our scout and our coaches, and using that to prepare well. Yeah.
Serena, it's been 23 years since K-State's advanced to the Sweet 16. Can you describe just what this means to you, the K-State women's basketball program, the fans, and the university?
Yeah, I think it's just super special for this group. I know none of us have advanced this far into the tournament, so we're just enjoying every little moment with each other and grateful to be here and excited that we've represented Kansas State well, and excited to continue to play together, knowing that we have, so many seniors, and each game could be our last. So it's super cool to make history for our school. And I know we all love Manhattan and love K-State, so it's been a really fun week back home too.
Eden Lassie, Hoops HQ, Aoka, just to kind of go off that, your career has been incredible in so many ways, but also frustrating in a lot of ways. So to be here, this will be your last year, to be able to help your team get to the Sweet 16 for the first time in so long, like he mentioned. Just what does that mean to you, and then if the other two of you could sort of speak to what that means to her legacy.
Yeah, it means a lot, to finally just accomplish these big goals that we've had, because it has been frustrating in a lot of ways. So to finally see some things come to fruition is just really exciting, and to get to experience these things with my teammates too is just memories that I'll just cherish forever. Coach Mitty always talks about not always realizing the full impact of what you're doing until 5 years down the road. So just remembering that and just soaking it all in while we're here. Yeah.
Tamira, do you have thoughts?
Yes. I feel like it speaks a lot to her character and who she is as a player and a person. She's been through a lot, and she's sacrificed not just her body, but her time. She's been in college for a long time, so not like that. But and it just means a lot to me. Coming to K-State, I was so excited to be able to play with these two, and it just means a lot, and I'm so grateful, and it's really a blessing.
So Tamara Poindexter getting a huge laugh there from those at the press conference, bringing up how long Aoka Lee's been in college. Well, I mean, she could be a doctor. I mean, she's been at K-State that long. Of course, she wants to get into family therapy. She, of course, wants to play some professional basketball after her time at K-State wraps up. But as somebody who is, I've been covering K-State women's basketball for over a decade now. This is my 13th season covering K-State women's basketball. I've never had this much fun covering this team. As a fan, I don't want to see K-State's run, especially with this group, with the GOAT, according to me. Well, you got a couple of GOATs. You got Aoka Lee, you got Gap Goat as well. You hope for some gaps tomorrow, 3 straight stops. K-State looking for 7 in a game. But Serena Sundell, Tamara Poindexter, Jalen Glenn, and so on. This is one of the most special groups K-State women's basketball has ever had. There's one thing to do before we wrap it up. It's time to make a prediction. Let's fire up Mitch Palm. Tomorrow's. I hope I hit the delay just right. All right. K-State, the 5 seed in Regional 4. The Cats are 28-7, 13-5. They finished in the Big 12. USC, the Big 10 champions, 30-3, 16-1. Cats beating Fairfield and Kentucky to get here. USC beating UNC Greensboro and Mississippi State, both by blowouts. USC, 30 wins on the year, the most in program history. Well, the most since 1986. The all-time series, K-State leads at 1-0. The only other meeting was in November of 2003, 2 weeks before K-State football won the Big 12 championship over number 1 Oklahoma. Those many argued that was the best football team in college football history, that Oklahoma team. K-State won that game 35-7 in Arrowhead Stadium. Cats to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2002. For USC, they were here last year. A bit of a different team last year, of course. But USC looking to make their second straight Elite Eight. Of course, the monster storyline here is Juju Watkins. It's on a fast break basketball play that just gone wrong, where she tore her ACL Monday night in the first quarter, does not return, undergoing surgery. Her season is done. The big question is, how do you replace Juju Watkins? She's on a meteoric rise. She is on pace to pass Caitlin Clark for total points in a career. 1,709 in her career so far, second best ever in the first 2 seasons of a women's college basketball player, only behind Kelsey Mitchell, who played at Ohio State, who had 54 more points. AP All-American, Watkins, 24.5 points, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists. When it comes to the team numbers, it's almost across the board. Juju Watkins has provided 30% of all stats for USC. So how do you replace that? Again, probably questions we're not going to have answered until tomorrow. I don't know. I was talking, of course, in the first hour, if you missed it, I talked with, from the LA Times, Ryan Karchi. We talked a little bit off air. We're both like, we honestly are not sure how this is going to go. It's just kind of a lot of mystery now that Juju Watkins is not going to play. But the show must go on. We know about Kiki Iriafen. Again, I'm not sure how to say your last name, if that's right or not, if I nailed it. But listen, I think this is going to be a phenomenal battle. Between her and Aoka Lee, you have 2 phenomenal players, future professional basketball players. They're going to square off. She's the only other Trojan that averages double figures at 18.5. She's their leading rebounder. She had 36 points against Mississippi State. But the thing is about USC, that was a pissed-off team. When Juju went down, they played with fire in their bellies, and they were just an unstoppable force. But when it comes to size, it doesn't stop there. Center, Rhea Marshall, 6'4". She's another big that K-State has to worry about. I don't know if K-State necessarily has the strength, the size necessarily to stop both of them. So K-State's going to have a really big challenge on their hands defensively. 7.5 points a game for Rhea Marshall. She's also a heck of a shot blocker and rebounder. Now, outside of that, a lot of youth at the guard position. 6'1" freshman Kennedy Smith averaging 9 a game. 6-foot freshman guard Avery Howell, who's their best three-point threat at 39%. She had 4 against Mississippi State. And 5'9" freshman Kaylee Heckel. I guess if there's one comparison is that K-State and these freshmen have never been here before. have never been to a Sweet 16. This is new, and there's going to be an insane amount of nerves heading into that game. A lot of areas where USC scares you. 10th in the country in scoring, one of the best in scoring defense as well. You know, they're not the best three-point shooting team at 32%, but they're having a decent tournament, an okay tournament shooting the three. Where they really worry me is their rebounding. They average 14 offensive rebounds per game. That was a struggle for K-State against Kentucky, who gave up 19. Good at getting to the free throw line, and they shoot well at the foul line at 77%. Their field goal defense, top 10 in the country, 35.5%, and they're tied with Kentucky for the best in the country in blocking shots at 7 a game. They force turnovers. They do turn it over a bit themselves, but when we come down to it again, K-State is a much better team than Mississippi State, completely different team. K-State has 3 All-Americans. Of course, USC has their All-Americans, but of course not as many with Juju Watkins off the floor. So this is a very hard game to predict. But I think it's fair that it feels like that there is a level playing field now that Juju is not going to play. Vegas, ESPN bets, whoever you bet with, has K-State as a 1.5-point dog. I think this is a nail-biter. I think it comes down to the wire. As a unbiased member of the media, I'm looking for a really good game. As a diehard K-State women's basketball team, of course, I'm not here to watch K-State lose in the Sweet 16. In my lifetime, this team has never been to an Elite Eight. And this team, you don't want to see it end. But I also do feel like K-State can get the job done. It's going to be tough, but I think K-State has the ability to just hit more shots. USC is going to have to get it done at the rim. K-State blew open the doors with three-point shooting in the NCAA tournament so far. They've been one of the best teams in the NCAA tournament at shooting threes. They're going to have to hit some shots. This is going to be a big game for Tamira. You cannot turn over the basketball too much. Supporting cast has to come through as well. You can't have too many weaknesses out there. Mitch Palm says K-State gets it done. And moving on to the Elite Eight, but it's a tight one. K-State 71, USC 69. Does USC go on a lull? That was maybe one issue this year for USC. They go on some lulls sometimes, and that got them in trouble, but they've only lost 3 games. Buckle up, K-State fans. Let's see if the Cats can get it done tomorrow. 7 o'clock tip-off, pregame coverage at 6:30. Meanwhile, coming up next, K-State baseball taking on the Texas Tech Red Raiders from Twitton Family Stadium. White Thompson, I believe you told me, right, on Monday he's going to be on the call. K-State baseball coming up next after a short timeout. Thank you for listening to the game live from Spokane, Washington.
Rain possible this weekend as we take a look at your News Radio KMAN forecast. Mostly clear overnight tonight with a low down around 60. It will be windy with winds out of the south, gusting as high as 35 miles an hour. Chance of rain before 5 o'clock, then thunderstorms likely between 7 and 10 o'clock on your Saturday evening. Mostly cloudy and 80 for your Saturday. Chance of rain before 1 o'clock, partly sunny otherwise on Sunday with a high around 55. Rain chances this weekend as we take a look at your News Radio KMAN forecast. We will see mostly clear skies overnight tonight with clouds moving in late, down to around 60 with a wind gusting out of the south at around 35 miles an hour. Chance of rain before 5 o'clock Saturday, mostly cloudy otherwise with a high near 80. Winds out of the south gusting around 30 miles an hour. Those winds switch around to the northeast, bring showers and thunderstorms likely Saturday night. Rain chances pop up over the weekend as we take a look at your News Radio KMAN forecast. Down to around 60 overnight tonight with a south wind gusting as high as 35 miles an hour. Cloudy and a chance of thunderstorms throughout the day on Saturday with a high around 80. Showers and thunderstorms likely Saturday evening. Mostly cloudy with a low down around 40. Rain should move off by Sunday afternoon. Partly sunny tomorrow afternoon. Rain chances as we take a... We could see some rain as we take a look at your News Radio KMAN forecast. Overnight tonight, we'll see increasing clouds with a low down around 60. It will be breezy with winds gusting out of the south around 35 miles an hour. Chance of thunderstorms throughout the day on your Saturday with a high around 80. Thunderstorms likely Saturday evening with a low down around 40. Rain should move off with the clouds with the... Rain. We could get some much needed rain as we take a look at your... We could get some much needed rain as we take a look at your News Radio KMAN forecast. Mostly clear overnight tonight, but increasing clouds as we go through the early morning hours. Down to around 60 for the low tonight. Breezy winds out of the south, gusting around 35 miles an hour. Chance of thunderstorms throughout the day on your Saturday with a high around 80. Thunderstorms are likely Saturday evening with a low down around 42. Rain should move off by Sunday afternoon. The high around 55. It's all safe. That's the main thing.